Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome University Circle Incorporated President, Chris Ronayne.
It is good to see so many good friends. I was mingling in the hallway, Director. Thank you for the indulgence, Felton Thomas. Happy 150th birthday again to the Cleveland Public Library. It's a monumental achievement. You're just a little younger than the city of Cleveland and Cuyahoga County itself by just a few years. It's amazing this institution has endured the test of time, and it's a testament to the entire team at Cleveland Public Library. So if you're out there, those of you that work for the Cleveland Public Library, thank all of you. Thank you. I will try to be brief, and I will, however, want to say a couple of things about my good friend Robert Madison. Before I do that, I want to say to Akram Boutros, before I lose the opportunity, thank you for all you are doing in this city with Metro Hospitals. He's truly put community health back in healthcare. You live by it. What you do in this community is extraordinary. Thank you, my friend. I want to say welcome back to University Circle, but so many of you are here every day. Thank you, Cleveland Public Schools, for this beautiful school we're in and the wonderful renovation that happened that saved this school. We're so proud of this high school and also the high school next door. Between John Hay and Cleveland School of the Arts, we have two of our finest schools in the city of Cleveland. Some of the best news we could have heard was frankly a testament to the students here and their faculty, teachers, administrators, what they did for this school to bring it back, to put it on the map, and then to, out of the School of Science and Medicine, achieve a top 20 regional, that's Northeast Ohio, regional achievement of best schools in class. Kudos, students. There's 3 schools within a school here, and I know one of these schools, all of them, frankly, are very important to Robert Madison. But as I was walking through the halls looking at the class pictures since 2006 when the School of Architecture and Design began at this school, I know that makes Robert Madison proud. And I'd like to just say a few words about my friend who I had the distinct pleasure to learn from on the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. He's now, by the age into his 90s and by the decades from which he was born and now entering into 2020, he's in his 11th decade. Wow. Robert Madison's story can be told in this book. It's the first time I've ever pulled a book up and give my book plug. Designing Victory is truly what Robert Madison has lived. From his family's great migration to the north, to his journey back to the south, to a trip to the mid-Atlantic states, all the way back to his birth in 1926 in a hospital down the street at 31st and Central. He was born in a hospital clinic that was called the Medical Clinic for Colored People. He was born in a place where he could only be brought to birth by a doctor who could only practice in a hospital that was for practitioners that were African American because they were barred from practicing in the institutions right here in University Circle. Hold that thought. Went down south, came back. His story begins with his grandparents. He ultimately worked his way back, gives tribute to his mother and father. His mother, the inspiration for him to become an architect at an early age. He studied at East Tech High School. And Robert, there's an East Tech grad out there somewhere. Robert, this school and the students in architecture, design, science and men, and early college prep, I think from our interaction with the students, must embody some of what you dreamt for when you graduated in 1940. Robert Madison lived through adversity. He fought through adversity for himself, his family, and for all of us. Went to World War II as a part of the proud Buffalo Soldiers unit, fought on our behalf, fought for world peace, and came back yet, and I say this with a heavy heart about the past of University Circle, but with joy about our future because of the fight that Robert Madison put up. A dean of architecture by the name of Francis Bacon told him he could not be admitted to Western Reserve Architecture School because of the color of his skin. Yet he came back with his decorated uniform, Purple Heart on his chest, and said, "Is this good enough?" And the Western Reserve persons thought otherwise, but they gave him hell all the way through, testing him as they didn't test other students, literally trying to flunk him out. He persevered, he graduated, and Dean Bacon, on Robert Madison's way out the door, said, "Good, you'll be able to find a job in the lumberyard somewhere." He fought through that. He found his way to Harvard. He studied under the great Walter Gropius. He studied in Paris at l'École des Beaux-Arts under the great Corbusier. He came back, he taught, but he wanted to practice. And he was still barred from practice because of the racist ways of the city we lived in and cities all throughout this country. He fought. He entered a design competition that was a blind competition where they did not know the color of the skin. They only knew the quality of his work, and he won it. And he founded his own architecture firm right up the street, Robert Madison International, in the 1300 block of East 105th. Go back to his birth, and sadly, several decades of injustice after his birth. He designed, as so many of you know, the medical offices of doctors who were barred from practice in the very hospitals in this neighborhood. But they did the very good work that the same doctors did to deliver him to this world. As many of you know the story, we are all proud of the building that now bears his name, the Madison on East 105th. And we are so proud of what's happened in that building, with new businesses burgeoning in the building, outside the building, and with Mayor Jackson's transformation initiative all up and down East 105th. We're going to have a new groundbreaking next week. And as a tribute to those doctors that practiced, their names are all carried on each room in the building that was renovated to respect the original design of Robert Madison. Wherever he is, because I walk so fast up here, I just want to say, here's to you, my friend Bob Madison. Read the book, Designing Victory. This is the story of Bob Madison. Congratulations, CPL. Let's have a wonderful MLK Day. And there's a lot more treats in here about Robert Madison's relation with Dr. King, and as importantly, also with Coretta King, and also Leatrice Madison. So, if you will, let the show go on. Welcome back to University Circle, and here's to Robert Madison, and of course, Dr. King.
Thank you, Chris, for that warm welcome and history of Robert Madison. Thank you very much. Please stand for the presentation of the colors. We are proud to have two color guard organizations presenting our flags today: the James Ford Rhodes High School Junior ROTC Color Guard and the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority Color and Honor Guard. Ladies and gentlemen, please continue to stand if you are able for the national anthems sung by Miss Tina Farmer, Choir Director, Imani Temple Ministries Choir.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Let us give it up for our color guards. time, the Reverend Anthony Everett, Church in the Circle, University Circle, United Methodist Church, just walking distance from here. Let us go to God in prayer. Almighty God, 91 years ago, you sent an angel disguised as a man among us and gave him the name of the Reverend Dr. Brother Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was a witness to you on earth and died a martyr's death. He came with mercy and love, living out the true meaning of the words angel and martyr, a messenger of good news and a witness of your love. As a martyr's death is based upon how one lives their life. Today we remember Dr. King not in his death, but in his living, a life worth of martyrdom. Dr. King, a prophetic activist and preacher, gave his life in order that the power of hatred and fear would be overcome by the peace that surpasses all understanding with a strength to love. Dr. King gave his life so that walls at the border would lay down flat and become bridges of hope and reconciliation. And Dr. King gave his life in order that the marginalized and oppressed of the world would know equity and equality. And Dr. King gave his life in order that nations would share in the laurels of peace and no longer abide by the arrows of war. Dr. King gave his life in order that poverty, the vicious war against impoverished human beings, would cease and that every human being would enjoy economic livability. And Dr. King gave his life not to be recognized with a national holiday, but for the reckoning of this nation and the world with a moral compass that points to you, Almighty God. Dr. King gave his life not to be reduced to sound bites of his famous "I have a dream" speech, but in order that the dream of the dreamer would be realized as a vision of hope for humanity. So today, as we celebrate the birth and living of the drum major for justice, we rededicate and reconcile our living with a vision of our hope for humanity. Our hope for humanity is with the reversal of melting polar caps, perpetual pollution, and environmental poisoning that shows a lack of care or concern for our home called Earth that you, God, have provided us. Our hope for humanity is with those who prophetically resist the immoral creation of false religious dogma for financial and political gain. Our hope for humanity is with the growing number of immigrant families being separated because of xenophobia, a fear of people from other places that fuel our country with hatred of the other. Our hope for humanity is with the refugee families who seek sanctuary from violence, only to be met with brutality at our borders, including the caging and infanticide of babies. Our hope for humanity is with the children, women, and others who suffer the international crisis of human trafficking, where human beings work for slaves as slave wages and are enslaved with sexual control over their bodies. Our hope for humanity is with the growing number of families and loved ones who continue to suffer the effects of gun violence in this country while worshiping you in sanctuaries or being in fellowship with friends, even as we hear the sad news today in Texas and Missouri and the continued violence in the streets of Cleveland. Our hope for humanity is with the children in Cleveland who suffer from environmental racism through lead poisoning, those who die before their first birthday, and those who live in neighborhoods with inadequate funding for equitable education, while others come from all over the world to study at some of the greatest institutions in our country here in Cleveland. Our hope for humanity is with those who suffer inhumane treatment by way of mass incarceration at the Cuyahoga County Jail. Our hope for humanity is with those who stand against racism, fascism, homophobia, and white supremacy from a narcissistic fool in the White House. We recognize that Dr. King would stand tall against all of these injustices and more. And if he were alive today, for he was a true servant to all of humanity, sent by you, Almighty God. God, give us guidance as we attempt to go beyond the dream, living out our own ethic of hope with actions of love. Remind us that the power of love is only found when we love you and love one another. All glory and honor is yours. Shalom, Salam, Alim, Amen, and Ashe. Thank you.
Please take your seats. Thank you to Ms. Farmer And to you, Reverend Anthony Everett, pastor of the University Circle United Methodist Church here in Cleveland. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Executive Director and CEO of the Cleveland Public Library, Mr. Felton Thomas.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the People's University. Because wherever we are, the Cleveland Public Library is always the People's University. On behalf of our Board of Trustees and over 650 Cleveland Public Library staff members, we welcome you to the 35th annual celebration of the life of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. It is our honor to welcome you, so many of you, here today. I think for sure, this is the record. This is the largest crowd we've ever had for any of our Martin Luther King celebrations. Thank you very much. So I want to begin my remarks with thank yous for all that have been instrumental in bringing this program to fruition. I want to thank Dr. Sadie Winlock, who has been moving bodies around like they're on a chessboard today to make this happen for you. Please give Dr. Sadie Winlock a big round of applause. I'd be remiss if I did not thank our staff. The staff of Cleveland Public Library, the best in the nation. Please give our staff a big round of applause. And I mean all of our staff. For the past 5 years, we've been one of the top 5 libraries in the country, and that is all the work for those in this room and those who are outside of this room. We thank them for everything that they have done for us, and we want you to know that we continue to work to make sure that all of our staff are working with us for our ultimate goal to be the best library in the country, although I already believe we are the best library in the country. I want to introduce you to a group who are instrumental in our success, our Board of Trustees. First, if I could get you to stand, President Maritza Rodriguez. Vice President John Hairston. Our Secretary, Mr. Thomas Corrigan. And our other board members, Alice Butts, Mr. Anthony Parker, Reverend Anthony Parker, and Mr. Alan Seifela. So second, let me begin by also thanking an invaluable partner on this program. This is our 35th, as I've said before, commemorative program, and the Delta Alpha Lambda chapter of the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, I got that right for you, didn't I? Has been with us since the beginning. With all the alphas in attendance, please stand. Thank you for everything that you have done to help to make this program continue on. They will never let a Sigma like me forget that Dr. King was an Alpha. We'd also like to thank CEO Eric Garden and the staff of Cleveland Metropolitan School District for the support of this program and helping us to host this program. I know one of the board members of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, Robert Hurd, is here. Mr. Hurd, would you please stand? And also in that education space, Merle Jansen of the Ohio Board of Education is here. Merle, will you please stand? So on Friday, I had the distinct honor of receiving the Civic Leader of the Year Award from the Cleveland chapter of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. It was a magnificent event with Reverend E.T. Cavanis and Reverend Hilton Smith from the Greater Abyssinia Baptist Church providing a moving tribute to Dr. King and his legacy. And their keynote was the Reverend Dr. Otis Moss, Jr. Now, I've seen Reverend Moss speak a lot, but he was fired up. He gave this brilliant speech, and to that speech, he talked about the fact that everybody can make a difference. That was Dr. King's legacy, that everyone can make a difference. And he told me, because we sat and talked a little bit after he was done, as someone who was just here last year with our program, he said, I want the attendees to know one thing, that the People's University, he doesn't call us Cleveland Public Library, he just said the People's University in his deep voice, is essential for driving the ideals of Dr. King, and that we are more important than ever in 2020. Because he said, everyone has to make a difference to promote democracy in 2020. So I want you to know that we are ahead of the game. Our campaign for the next year is Democracy 2020, right? Because we believe everybody can count in the census and in registering to vote. You will not come to a Cleveland Public Library program and not see some people out there giving you information on the census and registering you to vote, like with our League of Women Voters outside. If you have not registered to vote, get with someone. And when you need to sign up and get the census, make sure you count. Because as Reverend Moss says, everybody can make a difference. That's why we're so honored to have Dr. Acton Boutros as our keynote speaker. His life story is an example of how one human being can affect the lives of so many. We also know the fact that Mr. Robert Madison, his life has affected so many. And then today, you see 150 Clevelanders who every day, without reward, take the time to make the difference in our communities and affect the lives of Cleveland residents. We're all going to make a difference today. As we come to the end of our year-long 150th anniversary, and it has been an outstanding year, I need to thank all of you. It has been a remarkable year. So how do you follow a remarkable year? Quite simply, you're going to follow it with another remarkable year. 2020, the remarkable year for Cleveland Public Library, the People's University. So with no more to say, let me introduce to you our 150 unsung heroes, now to be known as the 2020 Drum Majors of Change.
Ladies and gentlemen, please hold your applause until all our heroes have been recognized. Ara Abdullah, Michelle Addison, Mitchell Addy, Valerie Addy, Caillou Allen, Sister Corita Ambro, Laura Aquila, Jerome Baker, Marianne Baylog, Shirley Banks, Alan Barnhart, Arnetta Bell, Sandra Bentley, David Blade, Connor Whalen, Denoris Brown, James Brown, Javante Brown, Rachel Brown, Denise Campbell, Molly Carrion, Leroy Carter, Norma Castro, Arthur Childress, Johnny Coleman, Dr. Dwight Colvin, Yolanda Kosu, James Creation, Mark Crosby, Ruth Crosby, Leona Davis, Monique Davis, Datisha Dawson, Katrinka Dean, Eleanor Dees, Jacqueline Diaz, Robert Denona, Danielle Doza, Gary Dum, Christine Dunn, Pierre Eglo, Marsha Evans, Howard Frank, Edwin Gabriel, Walter Gaychuk, Don Gaddis, Gwendolyn Garth, Robert Gatewood, Olga Gonzalez, Dale Good, Gwen Graffenreed, Melanie Graham, Dolores Gray, Deborah Hairston, Ivanka Hall, Ian Heisey, Tahia Hurd, Miriam Hernandez, Freddie Holman, Angelina Homick, Gwendolyn Houston, Phyllis Hutcherson, Yashua Israel, James Jenkins, Gail Johnson, Lady Red Joy, Megan Kennersley, Amanda King, Kaya King, Joan Kelleker, Eugene Kosoniski, Mike Koski, Sue Krosel, Dominic Lacavera, Cliff LaRoque, Robert Lawson, Dominic Leach, Dan Lehman, Pastor Albert Lewis, Marnetta Lewis, Walter Long, Marianne Lorient, Dan Lotz, Mildred Lowe, Robert Lucas, Lisa Mack, Carol Malone, Calvin Marshall, Gordon Martin, Maddie Matusik, Jocelyn McCain, Joseph Miles, Mike Mashaga, Rebecca Mitchell, Gustavo Morales, Brittany Mormon, Sharon Murray, Joe Outlaw, Selena Pagan, Patricia Paris, Megan Patterson, Johnny Perry, Aja Pope, Francesca Pope, Travion Prater, Daytwan Pratt Jr., Dwayne Price, Lavetta Louise Price, Aaron Randall, Pastor Charles Reed, Victoria Reed, Gail Reese, Kimberly Rapinski, M. Reynolds, Melinda Roginski, Miss Ross, Jason Salupo, Khalid Samad, Denise Schultz, James Scott, Pamela Shelley, Myra Simmons, Melanie Sklarz, David Smeltz, Jawan Smith, Lewis Smith, Maurice Smith, Sandy Smith, Tyler Smith, Lynn Solomon, Richard Sosinko, Sylvia Sauce, Harold Spinks, Ruth Standiford, Thomas Stebble, Taru Taylor, Brenda Thoyer, Barbara Thornton, Tom Toby, Sherry Tolliver, Darlene Tony, Daryl Watson, Dr. Fredrina Weems, Mathia Weems, Sonora Wilkerson, Nabiba Williams, Molly Wimbiscus, Kathy Wooten, Renee Wren Patton, Beverly Warm, Linda Zoltan Wood. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2020 Cleveland Public Library's 150 Unsung Heroes, Drum Majors of Change.
Thank you. And thank you for everyone for your patience and how you did that. I was just like having flashbacks of a graduation and I hear anybody say, "That's my baby," right? So each year we recognize an individual who throughout their lives have given back to the community, the country, and sometimes the world. Through their own special talent and gifts and their gifts from the heart, this year, we are humbled to recognize a legend in the Cleveland community, Mr. Robert P. Madison.
The library is really the one institution in our whole society that offers an opportunity for self-improvement simply by learning, because it's all there. And I like that. So the drum major is an individual who has confidence that he will have to be involved in all kinds of setbacks. But you've got to come up smiling and saying, like my mother said, the Lord will take care of us. That's why I got David all over the place. You see, look around, you see statues of David, my hero. David took a slingshot and slew Goliath. That's what I thought I could do. That, for me at least, is a sort of the inspiration that has driven me to where I am now. I'm not young anymore, but I'm still ready to roll. I believe strongly that each individual has a worth, a value. Why not recognize it? It doesn't matter what they look like. What can they do? And that's what we try to do.
So ladies and gentlemen, our 2020 Drum Major Award goes to Mr. Robert P. Madison. You're always welcome if you want to. No, I don't. Okay, thank you. Come on, we're going to take a picture right here in the middle. Someone's going to bring me
Ladies and gentlemen.
I was about to say somewhere there actually is something for Mr. Madison. I should have recognized it was sitting right there in front of me. All right, now you get to clap again.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Robert Madison, the 2020 Drum Major for Change Award recipient.
Let us rise up tonight with a greater readiness. Let us stand with a greater determination. Let us move on in these powerful days, these days of challenge to make America what it ought to be. We have an opportunity to make America a better nation. And I want to thank God once more for allowing me to be here with you. You know, several years ago, I was in New York City autographing the first book that I'd written. And while sitting there autographing books, a demented black woman came up. The only question I heard from her was, "Are you Martin Luther King?" And as I was looking down writing, I said yes. The next minute, I felt something beating on my chest. Before I knew it, I had been stabbed by this demented woman. I was rushed to the Harlem hospital. It was a dark Saturday afternoon, and that blade had gone through, and the x-rays revealed that the tip of the blade was on the edge of my aorta, the main artery. And once that's punctured, you drown in your own blood. That's the end of you. Well, it came out in the New York Times the next morning that if I had merely sneezed, I would have died. Well, about 4 days later, they allowed me, after the operation, after my chest had been opened and the blade had been taken out, to move around in a wheelchair in the hospital. They allowed me to open some of the mail that came in from all over the states and the world. Kind letters came in. But there's one of them that I will never forget. I'd received letters from the president and the vice president.
I've forgotten what those telegrams said. I'd received a visit and a letter from the governor of New York. I've forgotten what that telegram said. But there was another letter from a little girl, a student at the White Plains High School. And I looked at that letter, and I'll never forget it. It said simply, "Dear Dr. King, I am a 9th grade student at the White Plains High School." She said, "And while it should not matter, I would like to mention that I am a white girl. I read in the paper of your misfortune and of your suffering, and I read that if you had sneezed, you would have died. I am simply writing you today to say that I'm so happy you didn't sneeze." And I want to say tonight, I want to say that I'm happy that I didn't sneeze. Because if I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1960 when students all over the South started sitting in at lunch counters. And I knew that as they were sitting in, they were really standing up for the best in the American dream and taking the whole nation back to those deep wells of democracy dug deep by the founding fathers in the Declaration of Independence and in the Constitution. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1962 when Negroes in Albany, Georgia decided to straighten up their backs. And whenever men and women decide to straighten up their backs, that means they're going somewhere. Because a man can't ride your back unless it is bent. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1963 when the black people of Birmingham, Alabama aroused the conscience of this nation and brought into being the Civil Rights Bill. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have had the chance later that year in August to try to tell America about a dream that I had had. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been down in Selma, Alabama to see the great movement there. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been in Memphis to see a community rally around those brothers and sisters who were suffering. I'm so glad that I didn't sneeze. Well, they were telling me, now it doesn't matter. As we were leaving Atlanta this morning, and as we started on the plane, there were 6 of us. And the pilot came on the public address system and said, "We're sorry for the delay, but we have Dr. Martin Luther King on the plane." And to be sure that all of the bags were checked and to be sure that nothing would be wrong with the plane was protected and guarded all night. Well, I don't know what will happen now. When we got to Memphis, some began to talk about the threats that had been made and the things that were being said and what might happen to me from some of our sick white brothers. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop and I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life, but longevity has its place. And I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up that mountain, and I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. And I'm so happy. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Darrell Barnett from Caramoo House here in Cleveland. And now, the Cleveland Metropolitan School District's vocal ensemble singing When You Believe.
Although we know there's much to fear, we were moving mountains long before we knew we could. Whoa, there can be miracles when you believe. Though hope is frail, it's hard to kill. What miracles you can achieve when you believe. You will when you believe.
This time of fear, where prayers so often go in vain, and hope seems like a summer bird, so often drifts away. But now I'm standing here, my heart so full I can't explain, seeking faith and saying words we often never say. Resilient voice says hope is very near. When you believe, though hope is frail, it's hard to kill. Who knows what miracles you can achieve?
Thank you, CMSD's All Cities Vocal Ensemble under the direction of Dr. David Thomas. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Akram Boutros, our keynote speaker for this year's celebration.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Before I start with my prepared remarks, I want to recognize Mr. Robert Madison again. You see, I'm new to Cleveland, and I've been here for 6 years, but I also chair the Cleveland Heritage Medal, which is the highest civic honor that can be bestowed on anybody. And this year was my honor to present Mr. Robert Madison with the Cleveland Heritage Medal. And I want to thank my really good friend and colleague, Mr. Felton Thomas, for inviting me here tonight. Thank you very much, sir. History remembers the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. for many things. For the power of his words, for his tenacious crusade for equality, freedom, and social justice. For his creation of fundamental changes to our society through nonviolent protest. Most importantly, though, history remembers Dr. King for speaking the truth, even when it might not be what some people wanted to hear. I will do my best to follow Dr. King's example. I'm going to be completely candid with you. Dr. King knew there wasn't time to sugarcoat. There was work to do. We have made progress. There's no doubt about that. But still, we have work to do. Today in 2020, Cleveland is one of the most segregated cities in the United States.
It is. Always was.
Today, 5 of every 10 black children in Cleveland live in poverty compared with 3 of every 10 white children. Today, black students in Cleveland public schools are nearly twice as likely to be suspended as their white classmates. Today, in Cleveland metropolitan area, the median income of white residents is $60,000, and for black residents, it's $28,000. 43% of black residents live in poverty compared with 26% of white residents. White people get 6 more years on this planet than black people. 6 extra years of life. And don't get me started on black infant mortality, which is 4 times the rate of white infant mortality. As I said last year at the City Club, the deaths of black children must stop.
Yes.
They are an atrocity, and we must acknowledge that. To not do so is a moral outrage. Here in our great city, in the year 2020, more than 50 years after the greatest civil rights leader of our time died, we are left to wonder about his dream. Instead of a dream, it can feel like we are living in a nightmare. A nightmare of poverty and injustice, of racism and bigotry, of terror and despair. And still, there is hope.
Yes.
Because just as true as all those facts I've just rattled off, just as true are the words Dr. King preached at Stanford University in 1967. He said, "Somewhere we must come to see that social progress never rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts and the persistent work of dedicated individuals. And without this hard work, time itself becomes an ally of the primitive forces of social stagnation. And so we must help time, and we must realize that the time is always right. The time is always right to do the right thing. In our city, there have been tireless efforts and persistent work of dedicated individuals. And one of the many beauties of today is that we're not only here to memorialize the life of Dr. King, we are not only here to honor the beauty the architect Robert Madison leaves this world, we are not only here to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the founding of Cleveland Public Library, the People's University, we are also here to celebrate the tireless efforts and persistent work of 150 dear friends. "150 unsung heroes, 150 change makers, 150 dedicated individuals who know that the time is always right to do the right thing." These 150 people, many with us today, fight injustice and discrimination and intolerance every day. They are enriching our city's history and ensuring that our brothers and sisters are not left behind. You can find that history in the vast collection, more than 10 million books, papers, and other items now held by the Cleveland Public Library. Sit down with just one of these history books and you'll see how, like these 150 people, Clevelanders have known for centuries that the time is always right to do the right thing, especially when it comes to race. So back in 1819, 2 men captured runaway slaves in Cleveland and tried to return them to Virginia. A Cleveland jury didn't find the enslaved guilty of escape. It found the 2 men who captured them guilty of kidnapping. That was 42 years before the Civil War began. In 1830s, Cleveland and the surrounding area became home to dozens of stops on the Underground Railroad, helping thousands of slaves escape to freedom. Our nickname became Station Hope. By the end of 1840s, Cleveland Public Schools were completely integrated. And in 1867, 3 years before Congress passed the 15th Amendment giving black men the right to vote, Cuyahoga County, against pushback from much of the rest of the state, voted heavily in favor of granting that right to all men. As Dr. King said, there's nothing more majestic and sublime than the quiet testimony of a people willing to sacrifice and suffer for the cause of freedom. It is that majesty we celebrate today. That fight for the cause of freedom, freedom from hunger, freedom from ignorance, freedom from poverty, and from any injustice that we gather today to honor. That fight that gives us hope. Hope, it is what fueled Dr. King's dream. And hope is what fuels our dreams for the future of this great city of ours. This has not been a perfect place. We've had our share of setbacks and inequalities. You know the story. Some of you have lived them. The Huff riots, the Glenville shootout, Wiley Bridgman, Kwame Ojomo, and Ricky Jackson, Timothy Russell, and Melissa Williams. But as Dr. King told us long ago, if the worst in American life lurked in its dark streets, the best of American instincts arose passionately from across the nation to overcome it. The best of instincts rose from Cleveland too, not just in its early days, It rises now as well. Rises more recently from the 150 people we are honoring today. I won't tell you about each of them. We'll be here until next year. But I want to tell you about a few of them so you can see and feel the great good rising from so many people in this community. So you can see that the words of Dr. King, the ones he wrote so many decades ago, are etched in the hearts of those among us. And he said, "A man has not begun to live until he can rise above the narrow confines of his own individual concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity." Here is how Taya Hurd rose above those narrow confines. Taya turned her gift of gab into a gift for the Mount Pleasant neighborhood. She advocates for her neighbors in dozens of ways, in speaking out against food deserts and lead poisoning, in raising money for benches and planters that beautify Mount Pleasant, in fighting illegal dumping, and pushing for a youth center, and so much more. Thank you, Taya. Here's how Pastor Albert Lewis and his wife Marinetta Lewis of the Fountain of Grace Outreach Ministries rose above those narrow confines. Working with other clergy in the Slavic village community, Pastor Lewis created the Walking to School bus program for students at 5 Cleveland schools. This was after Eliana DeFries was abducted and murdered on her way to school. Their goal was to make sure no student in their neighborhood ever walked to or from school alone again. With names like the Magic Walkers and the Walking Heroes, these groups of students, these literally walking school buses, are now passing out what they've learned. They're protecting and supporting each other. And Marinetta Lewis co-founded the Drug Violence Awareness Program for Youth, bringing in speakers from places like Recovery Resources and Belfair to talk about addiction and healthy alternatives to 8 to 16-year-olds. That is in addition to the free meals and clothing and household items they provide to the community. And those are just a few of the ways that the Lewises are helping the residents of the Broadway Slavic Village neighborhood. Thank you, Pastor Lewis and Marinetta Lewis. Here's how Taru Taylor rose above those narrow confines. Just after graduating from law school at Case Western University, Taru talked to Calvin Marshall, the volunteer who leads the chess club at the university, and asked if he would help him with an idea. Over the years, several students have won chess scholarships to college, thanks to Calvin's coaching. And Taru thought that together he and Calvin could help a lot more kids do the same thing. So Taru took what he learned in law school, wrote on corporation papers, and created the Black Belt Chess Academy. He and Calvin opened the after-school program to 7 to 17-year-olds. They chose chess because you don't need to be 6'7" or run 40 yards in 4 seconds. They chose chess because it's a game that helps kids think strategically and see that there's a bigger world out there, a world just waiting for them. The Academy also helped Taru get back to his first love, teaching, something he's done in South Korea and Ramallah on the West Bank. The Black Belt Chess Academy has just completed its first full year, And its next goal is to raise enough money to buy a house for the academy and create a steady pipeline to college for Cleveland kids. Thank you to Rue and Calvin, too. As each of these heroes rose above the narrow confines of their own concerns, they lifted others with them. The echoes of their love reaches further into the future than any of us can see. And think, there are 147 others like them. Amazing. Please join me in thanking all 150 of Cleveland Public Library's unsung heroes. This same good work has been going on at Cleveland Public Library for 150 years. In 1897, just, 60 years after Metro Health was founded. We're a little older than you. The Cleveland Public Library began services to the blind, a commitment it has kept until today, where it now serves all 88 counties in the state through the Ohio Library for the Blind and Physically Disabled. Early in its history, it employed one of the first librarians focused solely on children. It pioneered services to immigrant community. During the Great Depression, it set an all-time attendance record helping those unemployed. Its service to shut-ins, established in the 1940s, became a model for libraries across the country, and it continues today with mobile services to daycare and senior centers and in pop-up book boxes at places like Edgewater Park. Those are on top of its summer food program for children, computer classes for people looking to improve their job skills, and free advice from the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. So it makes sense that it would continue that rich and righteous history with today's announcement of the new Cleveland Public Library Social Justice Center. Congratulations. So, to wrap up, I believe Dr. King would love this scene today. I believe if he were here, he would urge us on in the same way he urged the city on in his 1967 speech to the students of Cleveland's Glenville High School. He said, "Let us keep moving. Let us move on toward the goal of brotherhood, toward the goal of personal fulfillment, toward the goal of society undergirded by justice." I leave you today with that same message, inspired, I hope, to add your name to the list of community heroes honored here today, inspired to lift at least one person, just one, out of poverty or hunger or hopelessness or despair. I leave you with the words more inspiring than mine, with a message Dr. King spoke in Montgomery, Alabama in 1965. We are on the move now, like an idea whose time has come. Not even the marching of mighty armies can halt us. We are moving to the land of freedom. Let us therefore continue our triumphant march to the realization of the American dream. It is up to us, up to you to continue that march, to march until all of us, no matter what color of our skin or where we come from, are living side by side in a city of inclusive prosperity. To march until all of us have been lifted out of poverty. To march until all of us are earning equal wages. To march until all of us have the chance to live the same long, healthy lives. To march until we are all equal parts of this great democracy. To march until there is no need to march anymore, because his dream has finally come true. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Boutros, and thanks to Metro Health for your contributions to our community. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage to close out our celebration the Imani Temple Ministries Choir, who will perform two of Dr. King's favorite songs. They will be followed by closing remarks from our consistent supporter of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration, the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Do I have any lovers of God out here? Can I get an amen? Listen, let me ask you this. How many know that Jesus is a healer? He's a doctor. He's a Lord. I don't know about you. I need some healing right now myself. There is a balm in Gilead. Healing the sick. Choir, we have a message for you guys. We want to inspire you. We want to encourage you. We want you to know that God is right here with us. There's no surprise in what's going on right now. He's in control. How many know that? There is a bomb in Gilead. 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 Yeah, yeah. do it for you. This is one of Dr. Martin Luther King's favorite songs, Precious Lord. Sometimes we get a little tired and we just need Jesus to come on and take our hands and lead us on. We're weak. And he knows everything that we need. He knows before we even ask him for it. We get a little weak on our journey. He'll give you strength. How many know that? He'll guide you. He'll make a way for you. How many know that? Precious Lord, take my hand and lead me on. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on. And let me stand. I am tired. I get a little weak, Jesus. And I get a little through the storm, yeah. Through the night, lead me on, Jesus, to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home. I wanna go home when my way grows so drear, so drear. Precious Lord, I need you to linger near. Oh, when my life, when my life, yeah, the storm.
Guide me,
Oh, yeah.
protect me,
Protect me through the storm.
under your wings,
Oh, lead me, lead me, lead me, lead me.
guide me,
I can't make it without you, Lord. Protect me, yeah. Here's what I want you to do. Walk me, talk me. I love you. Lord, take my hand. I need you to lead me. I can't do this by myself. You are my way out of no way. You are the one that got my feet, Lord. Lead me, Lord. I need you to guide me. Protect me, yeah. Somebody help me say,
walk with me, tell me I'm
I can't live without you. Talk with me. Take my hand. I need you to lead. Oh, yeah. Lead me on.
Give that choir another round of applause. And Monty Temple was not playing around today. On behalf of our president, Brother Tony Dunlap, we the men at Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Delta Alpha Lambda chapter, extends to you a good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And as my brothers come to the stage, I want to talk to you for a little bit. My name is Lester Holmes, and I'm the vice president of the Cleveland chapter. Thank you. And before we give our closing remarks, we would be remiss if we didn't thank Director Thomas and his team for a beautiful partnership and a beautiful event that we had here today. You guys have done a job very well done, and we are proud to have our fraternity be a part of this event. To the 150 unsung heroes, let's give them another round of applause, please. Each and every last one of you work hard every day to make our community better. Not for riches or fame or acclaim or to be famous. You simply do it because it's the right thing to do. So thank you for all the hard work you do to make Cleveland great. Dr. Boutros, we thank you for speaking candidly about the health discrepancies within the African American community. And we also thank you for your efforts to work to mitigate and end those discrepancies as we work with you. So thank you for that, sir. And to our fraternity brother, see, Felton, we got another alpha. To our fraternity brother, Brother Robert Madison, we want to thank you for the continuous work that you've done to make a path for black architects all through the country. As we are gathered here, typically it's tradition for us to sing our fraternal hymn. And I believe there's a stanza in our fraternal hymn that exemplifies the life that Dr. King lived. It's called Manly Deeds, Scholarship, and Love for All Mankind. Manly Deeds, Scholarship, and Love for All Mankind. Manly deeds, being confident in yourself to do the right thing even though you know people are going to hate you for it. The man had death threats every day. His family received death threats every day. Dr. King was killed fighting for the rights of other folks. So if that's not manly deeds, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what is. Scholarship, to intellectually challenge racism and segregation. To intellectually challenge it with facts and evidence when I know he probably felt like using brute force, but he didn't. He used his intellect. And love for all mankind, the ability to love thy neighbor even when your neighbor may hate you. That's something that we all can learn from. So on behalf of the Delta Alpha Lambda chapter of Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, we again thank you all for coming, and we look forward to next year's celebration. Thank you all as we sing our fraternal hymn.
What, no!